the Around the NFL podcast. The history is rich.
It sure is. 10 years from the Chris Wessling podcast studio. It's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. I got a hero here, Gregg Rosenthal. It's almost weird to talk about how the history is rich without Colleen, the originator of said statement, but we'll get through it.
Also weird when you call me Greggy. That was really only a Debbie Rosenthal thing, but now it's popping up. My kids sometimes call me Greggy here or there, or my daughter really just. It's disrespectful, frankly.
I feel like I've called you Greggy for a couple of years now.
You've been in the mix. 10 years ago this month, actually. Right? Is that right? June 8th. June 8th is the date as we're taping. I moved out here June 1st, so there
it is. June
happened.
1st, and that was 2012. 2013, July is when we started Around the NFL as a foursome, the podcast, that is. How about that?
Like a month later. 2013, I was out here. Wes came out.
No, a year and a month, wasn't it?
1 month later. No, I started with the NFL that year before, but I had that weird year in New York, and Wes was hired in Tybee.
Got it.
I came out in June. He came out in July, and we were recording like 3 weeks later.
Crazy. Today, Mark is on a quest of some kind. We don't ask questions. Where's Mark?
Spiritual, perhaps.
It's perhaps spiritual. I was out on Monday. Hope everything went well. Mark should be back next week if everything goes well with his quest.
I feel confident he'll be back.
No, I think just a couple of his friends are in town, he said. So I don't want to get people nervous like Greg that Mark went into like a commune or something. That will happen, just it's not yet.
Or like started leading the cult that I've rumored that it's possible at some point.
If we here's our promise to the listeners about Mark.
Why are we talking about Mark?
If
it goes badly,
Mark starts wearing red sneakers or starts to give off vibes of cult leader in a tangible way, we're going to give you a heads up so you don't get blindsided. Because this show got blindsided recently. Nobody likes getting blindsided. We will make sure that doesn't happen with Mark entering the cult. Now, today's show. We got actually some news, Greggy. That's not bad. For June 8th, there's some actual stuff to talk about.
I think it was all the mini camps happening this week. There will be more even next week, but it just like made people act. So I'm happy to have an actual chunky news seg.
Mm-hmm. And for today's conversation piece, we'll call it urgency. The teams that have the most urgency entering 2020.
We usually call it a seg. You don't want to call it a seg? It's a conversation.
An information portal. The seg is we're going to talk the urgency rankings or the urgency ratings. We're figuring it out for teams entering 2023. And it's an interesting convo. I'm looking forward to having it, Greggy, because it's a little there's some nuance to it. You know, it's like it's not just like, oh, everybody. It's like win the Super Bowl. It's like we know that what's real and what's not. Different teams have different goals, but some teams have urgency that are at a higher level than other teams. And one team had a 0.0 on my urgency.
I think I know
scale.
The same team. It had my lowest mark as well.
Did they? But higher than 0.0.
I didn't put it. I put 1 as the lowest. I don't know why. I just thought 1 could be the lowest.
The gentleman's 0. All right. Before we do that, though, let's hit the news.
Cousins, back to pass, screen left to Dalvin. Turns it up outside the numbers to the 40. Gets to the 50. And is loose. Dalvin 20 to the left. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! Dalvin Cook. Yes. A 64-yard touchdown. And he had to drag a Colt into the end zone.
Oh, my goodness. The immortal Paul Allen on the call for KFAN. That was back in December. Dalvin Cook caught a short pass from Kirk Cousins, padding Cousins' stats in numerous categories as he rumbled 64 yards for a touchdown. The Vikings then got a 2-point conversion, Greggy, then kicked the field goal in overtime. They won 39-36 over the Colts after trailing 33-0 at the half. The biggest comeback in NFL history and one kind of forgotten because the Vikings went 1 and done in the playoffs. The Colts were already in like packing in mode and a disaster that year. But in the moment, and by the way, I locked up the Vikings in this game. I remember watching it with Lakeisha.
Well. It was bothering me.
It was wild that they locked it up for me. Kind of slept on as one of the craziest games ever.
I don't think it will be forgotten. I mean, you're right. Like, it should be remembered more, but that's the mark now. It's the greatest comeback in NFL history. The fact that the Chargers blew an almost as big a lead in the playoffs maybe took some shine away.
Jeez, that's GC. That was like 3 or 4 weeks later. All right, let's get into it. So, yes, Dalvin Cook, that was the man on that play, and he's had some great moments, certainly with Minnesota over a career that at age 27 has already included 4 trips to the Pro Bowl. However, the Dalvin Cook era in Minnesota is over. NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero, more on Pelissero in a moment, by the way, reported that the Vikings and Cook are expected to part ways. And it's supposed to go down officially on Friday, unless there could be a last-minute trade here, but it's very likely here that it ends with Cook hitting the open market. Greggy, a couple of years ago, he's in the conversation as one of the best running backs in the league. Minnesota's in a bit of a transition, but what's really behind this? How does he end up no longer part of their future?
I think it's curious. They love Alexander Mattison. They signed him to a low-cost contract. They put him as their Twitter header and took away Dalvin Cook's status as the Twitter header like 2 months ago. So this move was coming, and I think they were trying to get a trade going, maybe some draft picks. Didn't happen. I think Dalvin Cook can still play. Then I hear from some smart Vikings fans that, like Eric Eager, who used to work at PFF, thinks Cook is a little cooked. I don't see that. I know he wasn't as explosive a year ago. He still averaged 4.4 yards per carry. You saw that long touchdown. He had some big plays. He's still good as a receiver. He's turning 28. To me, he's easily the best running back that's actually hit free agency this offseason because all the good ones, Pollard and Jacobs and Saquon, all got tagged. I don't think he's like Joe Mixon. He's certainly not like Ezekiel Elliott, where he's just like hard decline. I think he's going to go out and help a team.
It's also the age for certain running backs. They have those 5 or 6 years. Le'Veon Bell, although his situation was a little weird because he sat out a year, but he was around the same age. And when he came back after signing that deal with the Jets, he was not the same player anymore. The Vikings obviously think he is a player that is in decline, or they're just looking at their financial situation and saying to themselves, you know, he's due over $10 million in 2023. Cutting him after June 1st allows them to save $9 million on the salary cap this season with $5 million in dead money. This is very much, Greg, as I said, a team that's trying to figure out like where they're going, and they're setting themselves up for the future. And if they like Madison as much as their Twitter head seems to indicate, this is a way to get more fluid financially in the future.
I get it. I just don't think their total number one objective this year is winning games. He's a $14 million cap hit, Dalvin Cook, before this release. So that is a lot. And I think they maybe are trying to open up space for some long-term extensions. And Justin Jefferson would be the most logical one among them. And so that might be part of it. But it's been a team that's been like around the cap space issues all offseason. They traded Zadarius Smith. Like, I think Dalvin Cook could help them, could help a team. They're very thin at running back now behind Alexander Mattison. I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe they'll sign like a low-cost veteran. But I feel like Cook's going to have some suitors. The Dolphins have been mentioned. The Broncos have been mentioned as a potential landing spot. They have Javonte Williams. They gave some money to Samaje Perine, so it'd be a little weird, but Denver, some reporters there have thrown that out. The Jets make some sense to me.
Depends on the Breece Hall situation, I would think.
But if they were interested in a rookie running
How about the
back,
Rams?
I mean, Rams don't seem like they're spending on any veterans. Panthers, I would throw out that the Bucks need a running back. These are the types of teams I'm not sure will spend. Mike McCarthy said some very positive statements about Dalvin Cook, and
a little bit of a weird depth chart there, especially with a guy Tony Pollard coming off the leg injury. That's interesting.
Like, he doesn't need to be a 300 carry guy, and I
shouldn't be.
I heard from people who was like, "Oh, Dalvin Cook, he's always banged up, this and that." Like, he played through a shoulder injury last year, and maybe that slowed him down a little in terms of like always seeking out the contact. When you think Dalvin Cook, you think like energetic runs, but he did play all 17 games. He really hasn't missed that many games.
Yeah. So just the quick Vikings timeline before we move on. Yeah, the Cousins, was a pretty big story a few months back when they are not going to rework his contract, so they're letting that play out. Adam Thielen, who's a stalwart there, They let him go. He goes to Charlotte. Zadarius Smith, as we said, traded. They are taking phone calls on Danielle Hunter as well now. Harrison Smith took a haircut to stay there. So, and now you have Dalvin Cook exiting picture. That's a 13-win team last year. You don't usually see it play out this way, but they were a weird 13-win team.
This puts them low on my urgency rankings. Spoiler.
Yes.
I mean, it just seems like a team with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, their GM, who started a year ago, that's like taking this as a reset year. The Hunter trade news, and the news was Rap Sheet said they're receiving calls on him, to me was way more surprising. It's like, really? He is one of your best players, and usually that doesn't get out there unless they kind of want to trade him. So now I'm thinking Danielle Hunter's not going to be there either, and he's one of their best players. I thought he might be a candidate to get more money, but apparently not.
Real quick, back to that 33-0 comeback. Do you remember the Pellraiser interview with Cousins after the game?
Vaguely.
Let's play just a little bit of that.
Kirk, no team had ever come back from 33 points down and won a game until today. How did you pull off the biggest comeback in NFL history?
We just pulled off the biggest comeback in NFL history. Okay, I need a second, Tom.
I need a second, Tom. Hellraiser. I love that.
The light went off in Kirk's eyes here. He's like, you can't come at me anymore for not showing up in a big spot. I've got that.
Yeah, my running back can rumble 67 yards on the screen with no one around him and carry 4 guys in the end zone. No, I like Cousins. I got to take a second.
You like that? You like that?
In disconcerting news, the Colts and cornerback Isaiah Rodgers. There's something going on here. He was not on the field for Wednesday's offseason workout amid an NFL investigation into his gambling activities. Rodgers, the subject of a league investigation into possible violations of the league's gambling policy, including possible bets placed on Colts games. Yikes. Rodgers acknowledged the situation on social media earlier this week, saying he takes, quote, full responsibility for his actions. Boy, Greg. So this is something that the Lions got hit with. Jameson Williams, their star rookie wide receiver, suspended multiple games, and other players that were connected to that. Now you have a cornerback who, and this is where it gets really dicey. Obviously, the betting apparently is connected to the Colts themselves, which is kind of a nightmare scenario in this new gambling world that the professional football landscape has embraced.
Right. ESPN sources, I'm going off of Stephen Holder, who's their local Colts reporter, and David Purdom, had that he made roughly 100 bets, and they were like in the $25 to $50 range, with maybe like a low 4-figure bet thrown in there. So it's just stupidity because no one's getting rich off of, even though it was pervasive, that's very pervasive. He was just doing it. I mean, he just didn't care, didn't think he was going to get caught apparently because he had someone else make them for him, but it was like easy to trace it back apparently. Like, what are we doing here? Like, all for what? Like, because he's not making much money off of this. And the fact that it's on the Colts has some speculation that, look, he could be suspended indefinitely. Like, they could be threatening his career or say that he has to do certain things before he ever returns. And this was a starter who was a 6th-round pick, had elevated to a starter last year, had a very good year, was an above-average starting cornerback in the NFL last year, which was kind of a surprise for such a late pick who got his first chance, and was just about to get paid probably because he's entering the final year of his rookie deal, and that's all gone now.
Yeah, I've heard, and yeah, this one's pretty cut and dry because it's gambling and it's involving his team and all that. Every player knows that's not allowed. But I've heard some pushback with some of these other gambling suspensions that have occurred in the last year or so, and even some criticism toward the league's policies and whether they're clear enough. And it's like, nah, get lost with that. It's like these guys have to know, just full stop. You have a whole life after football to do whatever you want in this realm. This message needs to be loud and clear. You can't do any of this. It doesn't matter what the sport is. You just got to stay away from it, or they're going to find you, because these investigations, the league needs to be on top of this at this level, because it brings into question the integrity of the game. So they're going to be hunting for guys that are doing anything in this world. So you just got to be smart enough. And he wasn't smart, and there's a lot of guys, it seems, that aren't being smart about it right now.
I guess it was inevitable. I didn't really see this coming, but I guess this was inevitable when this happened in terms of gambling becoming legal throughout the country, most of the country, not California, that this was going to happen, that you needed to have like 5 to 10 guys totally mess up. You would think that will be enough to get people aware,
Right.
to prevent it in the future, but you would have thought that already. It didn't.
Oh.
And the Colts are very thin there, by the way. For what it's worth, he's their kick returner. He's a starting cornerback. I would say they have one of the worst cornerback groups in the NFL, and he was, one of their best, might have been their best cornerback,
Yeah.
other than Kenny Moore.
I don't think we're going to see him
You blew it!
for a while. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, there he is again. Pellraiser reports the Titans.
Summer of Pellraiser.
I know, are hosting DeAndre Hopkins for a visit. It was confirmed when Mike Vrabel met with the media. You want to hear a little bit of a little spicy Vrabes?
Haven't heard this.
Okay. Not too spicy. Let's just hear from him.
Is it a recruiting opportunity, or like how does that benefit you?
I'm past the recruiting. I did that in college. I think that, again, would really just want people that want to be here. And then if that works out, then you go on to the next step. So this will be pretty much it until we, either sign or don't sign the next player.
And here's the Belichick disciple when part 2 of the question about DeAndre came.
He's got a reputation, Mike, for now.
This will be, again, if that's what you're going to ask your question about today, Paul, I'm going to give you another opportunity. But I'm going to talk about the players that are here. And when DeAndre's here, I'll visit with him, and then we'll move on when we make any other transactions from there.
Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't really hear did you hear it?
I
Eric,
think he was saying like he has a little bit of a reputation of, and then he cut him off before. I don't even know.
He's got a history of not practicing, cuts him off, and he comes back in. The last guy that didn't practice, and then he kind of cut him off. Yeah.
He's talking Julio Jones. He's saying, "Do you want to make the same mistake?"
Okay. I forgot that
saying,
Julio Jones was on the Titans for a second there, but yes, he was for a hot minute a couple years back. Yeah. They're still kind of digging out, Greggy, from the A.J. Brown mistake that they made, the management made. I don't know is Hopkins the fit there. I don't know if it is.
I just think it's always Paul. It's always Paul Kuharsky.
Yeah. Like
the look on Vrabel's face, he is that one reporter that I feel like Vrabel's.
Kuharsky is the guy that hated the Titans nickname, right?
I mean, he's the one you once had a back and forth.
We had a little conversation on this show.
He seems to mix it up with whoever, wherever he goes. I get questioning their idea of signing another aging wide receiver. It has not worked out for them. Robert Woods was on that team too, right?
Yeah, he was.
I'm mixing up the Titans.
It's all a little hazy, but that's
because
true.
He's on the Texans now. None of it's worked. They need another receiver. So actually, if they're trying to win this year, and I think they are, it makes a lot of sense to me. Nick Westbrook-Akina is their number 2 receiver. Like Kyle Phillips is their 3. They could use a receiver.
If Hopkins wants to be there, you got to make it happen. Because they have made, as far as we know, this, like you're saying, when you keep the veteran quarterback and you're keeping Derrick Henry in the building, you're sending a message to your fans, who I think they're happy to hear it, at least the ones that are always looking for immediate results. That you're in it to win it, and you obviously have a big hole there. And Hopkins, even if he's not the same guy, huge upgrade, Greggy, if they can add him.
It would be big. It does have the feeling of Hopkins is not getting the money he wants from the Bills and the Chiefs specifically.
Are they being used a little bit?
There's been reports that both those teams are interested, but they're not giving him Odell Beckham money. They probably say, hey, look, you want to go chase a ring? We'll pay you 1 year. We'll give you some incentives. The base is probably under $10 million. Come play with us. And he might not be down with that. And so he either is going to take the money or use the Titans for the money. But they would have to probably pay a Titans premium.
And that connects with the Burt Breer report from last week that he might have to take, what was the bag or chase the ring? Probably not going to get the ring in Tennessee.
It's easy for me to say, but he's made a lot of money. And
careful now.
A place like Buffalo or Kansas City would be you could go there for 1 year and you still will make, let's say, $8 million. That's putting it forward, but I know they don't have a long shelf life of how many years.
You factor in taxes? New
no.
York State taxes? Pretty stiff.
I got to think it's less, too, in Tennessee than in Buffalo.
Another graybeard comes off the board, Frank Clark. has a home. The Denver Broncos signed the edge rusher, formerly of the Chiefs, 1 year, $5.5 million. Could get up another $2 million if he hits some incentives. He's had a quiet market, Greggy, and is maybe not the guy he was at his peak, but a nice rotational rusher gives the Denver a little more juice there.
When I did a projected starters, I thought their edge rushing position was among the worst in the league. Like, pretty interesting defense otherwise.
Post Bradley Chubb era. Yeah.
Right. No Chubb. Von Miller's also gone. Some guys that may or may not fit. So kind of makes sense. But I was feeling like Frank Clark was a little cooked. Was not contributing a lot to the Broncos. So to the Chiefs. I don't think he's gonna be a big difference maker. But it's nice. I like when the 101 guys get pushed off the list. I just feel better. I just want that list to be empty.
Mm-hmm. Who's the best player left now?
Well, now Cook is going to be on there.
Oh.
But DeAndre Hopkins is.
Don't you wish he was on there in March when the piece had juice?
Well, yes. And I respect our editor, Ali Bonpuri, but he sees when Hopkins gets cut or Cook gets cut. He's like, ooh, fresh meat, Greg. Let's go do another write-up, put him on, and then we can put it back into the rotation. Like, here's where Cook is.
In other news, there's always going to be a ton of coverage around the Cowboys. Always, right? And they're doing their job. They do their job as well, Jera and the whole organization, because they give the national media and the local media fresh material. And this is no different this spring because they are really pumping up this new offense. They're calling it, Greg. Have you heard what they're calling it? They're talking up the Texas Coast offense. I mean, can't you just hear Stephen A. Smith screaming right now? And Mike McCarthy, Zaddy himself, has not been shy, as you know, talking about.
I'll just say this: we're nobody's underdog.
Exactly. He's puffing his chest out. He's calling plays this year. And despite Dallas being a highly ranked offense, let's listen to Zaddy once again, giving some gruel, throwing in some meat into the old churn blender.
They need to own the offense. I have no interest in being known as some guru coach or a smart coach. I'm a smart Hall of Fame type quarterback.
Don't you call me a smart coach?
You got to make them own the offense. And you see it. He has the personality, but it's just like anything. So, this is our first year of playing the way we want to play. And he's done a really good job of taking ownership of that, and then with that, the mental challenges, he's knocked it out of the park.
First of all, Kellen Moore, who is in LA now with the Chargers, this narrative that they're spinning out of the Star, that now we get to play the way we want to play. Mike, come back to us. You're the head coach, bud. Like, you can't say that. It doesn't look good on you. He's saying now he gets to be himself as a play caller this year, and that's why they're going to be better. And they were pretty damn good last year.
Play the way we want to play. They were fourth in points scored in 2022. They were first in 2021. I mean, points are important.
Not the way they wanted to play, though.
I get it, but he's showing kind of like mid-career Jerry Jones coach symptoms here.
They're kind of perfect together.
Where he is now he's not hitting out, but he's at least needling Jerry and letting the public know, like, hey, this wasn't really on me. This was Jerry forcing his guy on me. And I've got enough cachet with Jerry now. I can throw that out there because I know he doesn't take things personally, which is to Jerry Jones's credit. I am not that optimistic, though, of Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer being an upgrade, but we'll see.
I mean, listen to these quotes coming out of Dallas. Here's Zach Martin, the guard. It's more of an attitude deal. Instead of McCarthy's effect as a Pittsburgh guy calling plays. That's the best way I can describe it.
McCarthy's gotten a lot of mileage out of being from Pittsburgh. I feel like that has been brought up when it is related to
a lot.
McCarthy. He needs that beard back, though. Not feeling the Zaddy vibes from Mike right now.
Okay.
Feel like it's better when it's a beard. Also in my mind is a 2014 Packers game that was on NFL Network the other night. The boy, you want sports at the dinner table at dinner.
Yeah.
There was no basketball. I had no local baseball. I couldn't find a baseball game. So we just put on the old Saints-Packers from 2014. I have no idea why that game was on. But Mike looked better then, is my point.
The most Greg dinner situation possible.
Little Saints-Packers.
You're saying he looked better?
He looked better back then.
Well, it was 9 years ago.
I mean, can you imagine living with me?
Who among us did not look better 9 years ago? I mean, it happens occasionally.
You know, Mark looks pretty good now. You're looking very zaddy. Like, I'm not saying Mark looked bad 9 years ago, but honestly, Mark is looking pretty hot. You got the facial hair, you know. But you're right. 9 years is a long time.
Are you just fishing for a compliment, Greg?
No, I'm not.
You look great.
I'm not, because I know it's not true. I've seen it.
Sheck used to have a good line about this, and I think it's very true, which is we're all kind of hard on our own appearance, and then you'll look at like a Facebook photo from your 20s or whatever. Or 10, 15 years ago, and you'll be like, "Wow, I look good there."
Yeah.
But back then, you didn't think you looked good. And guess what? In like 10, 15 years, we're gonna look back at how we look now and be like, "That's pretty good."
It's wise words.
Pretty good. Mark does look good. Well, of course, once he got Levi too. He's got the new jeans, he's got the black boots and Levi. He's got a whole thing going on, and we love it. That's everything in the news. Let's take a break and get urgent. All right, welcome back. Greg, here we go. You ready? It gets so urgent. You know it's urgent. I want to tell you it's the same for me. So urgent. Just you wait and see how urgent our love can be. It's urgent. You say it's urgent. Make it fast. Make it urgent. Do it quick. Do it urgent. Gotta rush. Make it urgent. Want it quick. Urgent. Emergency. So urgent, emergency. It's urgent.
Don't know what that is, but
sometimes
it started to make me feel uncomfortable at the point you said "make it quick." It's like let me spend some time here. Let me enjoy myself. I don't want to make it quick.
Sometimes when it feels like a good move to like when you're trying to make a deep point or really connect on a level that makes you seem profound. You go and dig up some lyrics from like. Maybe like Bob Dylan, like Blood on the Tracks. In this case, I chose Foreigner and their 1981 hit, Urgent. So It didn't have it didn't come off the way I wanted it to in my mind. But if anybody wants to pause and listen to that song, is Parker around? We have Parker behind the glass. She loves all that late 70s,
I guess I should
early
feel
80s
more
stuff.
urgency on that front then.
I don't know a lot about Foreigner, I feel like.
Foreigner, you'll be shocked to go down. If you ever were to just randomly go down a random Foreigner wormhole, you would be stunned to know how successful they were.
I feel like, though, between Foreigner and Journey, there could only be one, and Journey's won the battle.
Journey won.
My daughter is finishing elementary school this week. It's a little off topic.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And they played, a slideshow of all the pictures over the years, like showing them in kindergarten and now up through 5th grade. And they played "Don't Stop Believin'" as part of it. All the kids are singing the song. They know the words.
They know it.
Journey's won.
My eldest son Jack last year for their creative writing portion of school, that was the song their 24-year-old school teacher put on to get them into the headspace of creative writing.
They also know the lyrics to "September" by Earth, Wind, and Fire. Shocked me. Shocked me.
You know what else will shock you? Foreigner has worldwide sales of more than 80 million records, including 40 million in the U.S.
It's pretty shocking.
Anyway, urgency. In some ways, Greggy, all teams have it, but that's not necessarily true because there are different levels of urgency. And I'm going to do a piece on this on NFL.com, but this will be a good kind of testing ground. You and I can chop it up a little bit and talk about the teams that are facing the most urgency entering 2023. And let's get it started thusly, Greg, because I brought it up before. This is the old Steinbrenner principle. Anything less than a Super Bowl appearance is considered failure. And so I'm going to start with the team that I think has the most urgency, and it's the Buffalo Bills, because I think they are truly Super Bowl or bust, and the dark side of the coin is pretty damn dark. And I don't think it means like coaches and GMs are getting fired necessarily, but kind of blown up the roster in some ways is certainly in play, I think, if they fail this year. And it just opens up a level of doubt around the organization if they don't get over the hump. So I'm going to, if I had to set like 0.0 out of 10.0, I'm putting the Bills higher than anybody in this exercise. I'll put them at a 9.7 on the urgency scale. Buffalo Bills. Are you with me that they have the most urgency of any
No,
team in the league?
no.
Oh, interesting. What do you got?
But it's close. Well, my first one, and I admit maybe this is, let's see what kind of reaction I get. I think it's your New York Jets.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just because they're the other teams that are most logical for most urgent. I had the Bills sort of second or third. I think comparing them to the Bengals is interesting because I actually put the Bengals slightly ahead of the Bills, although they're very similar to me. But the Bengals right now, I feel like have this offense together right now, and I don't know how long it can stay together. Very specifically talking about T. Higgins, maybe Joe Mixon, I'm not really that worried about, but even their defensive core, it just feels like now is the time for the Bengals. So I put them slightly ahead of the Bills, but they have quarterbacks in the middle of their prime that are maybe going to the Hall of Fame someday. So I just feel like if they're smart about it, it's not quite as urgent as a team like the Jets, who have a 1 to 2 year window. I mean, maybe Aaron Rodgers will be playing really well for 3 years. We haven't seen someone that old play at that level other than Tom Brady for 3 years, or even play at all. And so to me, they have a Super Bowl ready roster. The longer this offseason's gone on, the more I'm convinced the Jets should be really good, actually, that they won't be overhyped. But it just feels like it's like they are truly now or never because of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and I have them at 9.6, so they were second on my list.
I gave them a perfect 10. I just wanted to give someone a 10.
That's fair, and I think for the Jets, they're kind of in a different category, and that's something that I'll kind of, when I do my write-up, I'll focus on. So where the Bills, to me, are Super Bowl or bust, a team like the Jets, it's not Super Bowl or bust, but it's playoffs or breadline for a lot of people, and it's Robert Saleh, potentially Joe Douglas, Aaron Rodgers. If this season went sideways, you just don't know what happens after this year, even though I think it's a 2-year proposition is what I would guess it is. But a lot of things get really murky if they do not field a double-digit win team. So I'm with you on that. The Bills, I'm just to cycle back to why I have them kind of as like the team just ahead of everyone else. This is since Josh Allen really came into his own. They lost in the wild card round. They lost in the conference playoffs. They lost in the division playoffs. That heartbreaker, obviously, against Mahomes. And then lost again in the division playoffs, where they really were beat up and beaten pretty badly by the Bengals in a kind of an eye-opening playoff loss. So you have that taste in their mouth, and I guess maybe I just give them a little bit of the edge because the stakes are higher, because it's just like this kind of tortured franchise that now has this great quarterback and this really good core. And I did, check in with your projected starters, Greg, like, and coming up with my list, and it's like, is there enough around them? Did they do enough this year? They didn't make the big splash, maybe DeAndre Hopkins ends up there and then you feel a lot better. But will they look back with a lot of regret if this upcoming season ends like last season and they're like, wait a second, we had the warning when the Bengals beat us up in Buffalo, right? If I'm not mistaken, and we didn't really attack. So anyway.
I hear that. You're right. They're going for different things. I put them all on one scale, but the Jets to me have a higher kind of high wire act, where it's like they could theoretically win 7 or 8 games. So you're right. Like their bar, if they win a playoff game, they win 11 games. But their urgency to me to do at least that is like the highest of any in the league, because if it got ugly there, it's a tough division. If they won 7 or 8 games, it's just going to be a total disaster. Of course, if the Bills won 7 or 8 games, that would be a total disaster too, but they'd still have Josh Allen, and I just can't imagine them actually doing that. Bills fans, try to enjoy this, though. The whole George Steinbrenner thing is
getting antsy, though. Bills fans are antsy.
I know, but
this has been promised for a couple of years now.
This isn't going to last forever. If you win 12 games and you lose in the playoffs, at least enjoy the 12 games. Enjoy the way there.
It's not a coincidence either that we led with 2 AFC East teams. I think it's the best division in football right now because of the rosters, the talent on the rosters, but it meets this urgency overload, because I also have the Dolphins at 8.5 in this exercise.
I had them at 8.
Okay, because they're fully loaded and ready to go, but now they just gotta go. And the Patriots, Greg, this is why they are not a Super Bowl or bust team. But I put them at 8 and I put them in their own category, Greg. They're the only team that had their own tier. I had them in the Foxborough Triangle. And
said we weren't going to be special, the Patriots, and we got our own team.
Maybe things are changing. That Belichick, Kraft, Mac Jones, Foxborough Triangle, I think a lot can change if they have a bad year and they need to show growth with Bill O'Brien at OC and all the positive reports coming out of there. That has to translate. Where did you have the Pats in this?
I had them ranked 8th and just below the Dolphins, kind of a tie there among a bunch of teams. But yeah, now that I look at it, I had 4 of my 8 most urgent teams were in that division. I think the Dolphins are an interesting one too, because I know Tyreek Hill's so important. I just don't think Tyreek Hill is going to last forever and just sort of be in a perfect spot. So I do think that's an urgent situation. And the Patriots, yeah, when the coach has to win and it's in a tough spot, I think they have a lot of urgency. So that someone's going to leave this division incredibly disappointed. I suppose there's a scenario, I guess the Patriots win 9 games and are still in 4th place, and I guess that's where everyone's roughly happy, but that's hard to imagine.
And I don't think that leads to some huge blow up, because
No.
I think that's kind of generally seen. Their ceiling could be about 10 wins or so.
Their schedule's brutal, especially out of the gates. It's urgent there. People are fighting in OTAs. You don't really hear that too often.
Yeah, but Belichick loves that.
Yeah, he likes it. So we got a real team here.
So my Steinbrenner principal had the Bills, the Bengals, for similar reasons to the Bills.
And I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Also, with the Bengals, as we've talked about on the show, have had that core in place for several years on offense, and that's not going to last forever. And they've been knocking on the door for a couple of years now, including a near Super Bowl win. I think it's this idea to get over the hump, as much as our QB says their window is his whole career. And the Eagles, where do you have the Eagles in this exercise? Because I think their urgency is sky high for me. In fact, I had them near the top of my list. I got them a cool 9 out of 10. And I understand they're set up well for beyond this upcoming year. But also, the other factor is, this is a watered-down conference.
Mm-hmm.
Another team that was knocking at the door last year with a MVP-level young quarterback, and you have that defense that might even be better this year, and everything seems so perfectly lined up that this feels like, in the NFL, things change quickly. So the iron here is hot. Strike it. Get that W. Get over the hump. I think they're at a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I had them at 8.5, and they were my 5th ranked team in terms of urgency, so right towards the top. And you're absolutely right. You know who they remind me of is the 2018 Eagles and the 2017 Falcons. Those were 2 teams that coming into the season, everyone was like, that's the best roster in the league. And both of those teams ended up making it back to the playoffs. I think they each win 1 game, but it still was hard to recapture that magic. And sometimes it looks so perfect on paper. They were ahead of schedule a year ago. Now is the year, I think, was their push year where they really thought they were going to be great. They did a good job keeping as many people there as they could, including Graham and Fletcher Cox and James Bradbury and Slay. It's not going to stay together. I'm with you, especially with that conference. They're the most urgent of any NFC team.
I had the Cowboys right with them because we talked about a little bit Zaddy before, and maybe there's a little bit of I don't want to say bad blood between Jera and McCarthy, but McCarthy's putting it out there that this is his team more than ever. And if they take a step back or Dak takes a step back, I think you and I definitely differ on Dak a little bit because I read in your projected starters that you kind of labeled him, I can't remember what you said, like a top QB or something, where I feel like there's enough evidence that maybe he should be a little bit lower in that conversation.
He's in the 7 to 10 range.
Okay.
But that's solidly ahead of the Kirk Cousins and the Tannehills.
We love our quarterback.
That's where I disagree a little bit. I think
last year was a weird year in terms of interceptions.
But not that he's going to lose his job, but there could be. Mike McCarthy's facing a lot of pressure, and they're a team that cannot get over the hump, cannot get into the NFC title game. And I get the feeling that with Jerry Jones now in his 80s, that if this thing doesn't get them, if they don't get to the Final Four this year, there's going to be changes there.
Yeah, I should move them up a little. I had them too low. They just seem so happy and they're fine. But you're right. The coach possibly losing his job was important to me on this urgency scale. Well, that's why I have one team that we haven't brought. I have two teams, but one the only other one I had over 9.
Yeah.
We have not brought up, and that is the Cleveland Browns.
Yep, I had them at even 9 as well.
Okay.
Go ahead.
They're in my top 5, just because I just think even if the outside expectations aren't as high, the ownership expectations are going to be sky high. They need to show something for this Deshaun Watson trade. I don't think the Hopkins is going to happen. It sounded like Deshaun Watson was pushing for
That was
Hopkins.
hot for a minute there. Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen, but they did bring in Zadarius Smith. They don't have a lot of huge holes. I think it's a good roster. So I just think their playoffs are bust at the least, and the urgency is sky high.
Yeah, there's a lot of reason for optimism there, but also I think a creeping sense of dread because Watson could get everyone fired. And if Watson stinks and they fall on their face this year, it will make the Cleveland Browns a different kind of eternal laughingstock because that will go down in history as that will absolutely be in the conversation. We're not getting ahead of it or trying to jinx it.
You still got 4 years left on the deal.
But I'm saying, like, if this cratered, that would be in the Herschel Walker conversation. Like, so until it's proven, and you're pushing the Deshaun might not be good card a little harder than I am. I'm just saying it's kind of out there until it's not at all. So there's a lot of urgency for this season to produce results.
And by Herschel Walker, you mean the trade, not him embarrassing himself as a public figure afterwards. Because
I know
it's a lot.
I've tried to block out his what was it, run for Congress? Senate. Yeah, that did not. Nobody was covered in glory connected to that on his side of things. But as a good running back, yes, the Cowboys set up their dynasty with a trade with the Minnesota Vikings.
I've settled it on like Watson's probably more likely than not to be an above average quarterback.
Right.
But being like the 13th best quarterback in the league, that trade is a fiasco, even if that happens. I know he's not going to be the 30th best quarterback in the league again. That would be crazy.
Yeah, and they should be. If they're not contending for a playoff spot in January, everyone's very nervous around there. Let's see. Let me see a team that we haven't discussed. Where did you have the Chargers? I had them at 8.5.
Yeah, I had them at 8. They were like 10th on my list because they've gotten to the playoffs. They've had a winning record under Brandon Staley, but the defense has shown no ability to get better. You have Justin Herbert still on his rookie contract. I feel like they're in perennial. They're like always the same. They've probably been at this level for years. Like ownership is not.
When is that not good enough?
I feel like ownership is fine with them just doing this year after year. So it's not quite as urgent, but I'm feeling the urgency.
Well, Brandon Staley's feeling the urgency, right? I mean, they had a historic meltdown in the playoff game, and that's going to wipe away any goodwill. And they have a roster that on paper is ready to compete, and at a certain point, unless ownership is disconnected and doesn't care that much about seeing tangible progress, you would think they need to get back to the playoffs and not lay like an embarrassing egg in January for the coach to be back, right?
I would think so, and I worry for Brandon Staley because on paper the defense looks worse to me, and he hasn't been able to coach up the defense at all. I have one team though ahead of the Chargers that we haven't hit in my top 6.
Okay,
we haven't even mentioned them. The Washington Commanders.
Oh, they're low for me.
I mean, anytime a new owner is coming in, I feel like it's urgent time. I know our expectations aren't crazy high, but I feel like he's got to make the playoffs or everything gets blown up there.
I mean,
even the name it might not stay around.
I mean, I don't want to make everything just a QB conversation, but Sam Howell versus Jacoby Brissett doesn't scream team urgent to have a big season or else. Like, it seems like a team that's very purposely, sitting in the marina with the boat in neutral, waiting for things to settle before they really dive in next year.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's good news for Ron Rivera or the worst news possible.
I think it's the worst news possible. I think
if you're docked in the marina, bro, you're a 6 or lower for me.
I mean,
are they on the high seas?
I'm putting them out on the high seas.
You put them on the high seas.
I mean, they've got a lot of veterans on that team. They don't have a lot of huge weaknesses. They're paying a lot of money. I know they don't have any quarterbacks, but I guess if it was coach urgency rankings, I feel like he would be in the top 5 because when a new owner comes in, he's lived this life before. Same thing happened in Carolina. He's got to win now or else they blow it up.
I think they're going to have a big name at quarterback next. We'll be talking about this time next year.
Okay.
But that's why I kind of have them a little lower. I have, the division that has the least urgency, which is kind of funny. The idea of an entire division, be like, the NFC South.
Yes.
With the Bucks, I have at a 3. Excited, what are the Baker versus Kyle Trask? They have a weird roster with a bunch of veterans, but no Tom Brady anymore. They kept the head coach there. I guess there's some coach urgency there. To show they can grow, especially on defense, but they're not necessarily set up for success there either, Greg. Like, how do you even make sense of the
No, I put them at a 5 just because they have an older GM and coach and some veterans on that team. But that whole division to me didn't seem that lack of urgency. I had the Saints and the Falcons pretty high. They were pretty much up next after Chargers.
Yeah, I kind of did too, actually. I gotta say, I had the Falcons at 7.5, so I should walk back a little bit.
Yeah, they're in year 3 of this process, and I feel like they have to show something. I feel like Dennis Allen has to show something. They're really talking up a big game in New Orleans, like that they're the favorites of that division. I feel like the AFC South is the division where there's no urgency. I don't have anyone above a 5. I got the Jaguars at 4. Even the Jaguars, it doesn't feel that urgent. They could futz around.
I got the Jags at 6.5, the Titans at 6.5, Colts at 5, and the Texans at 6.
Whoa.
I mean,
we're on our own little scales.
Yeah.
I got the Jaguars at 4 and the Texans, Titans, and Colts at 3.
Hot right now.
At the bottom of my whole list because I feel like all these teams could kind of mess around this year. If the Jaguars took a big step back, it would be frustrating, but they're a relatively young team with a young quarterback, and Peterson has some rope. And then the other teams all have rookie quarterbacks and new situations, either new head coaches or in the Titans' case, at least a new general manager. So it's like a lot of teams that are just starting from scratch.
There's a little sub NFC North category I want to introduce, like be a grower, be a shower. The Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. I don't think either team, although the Lions, I think it's expected that the Lions now make the playoffs, which just feels like a weird thing to say. But they are expected to take that jump. But I don't know if people get fired if they don't make it, and I don't expect them to crater either. And the Bears, I think I agreed with their whole aesthetic this offseason, which is get behind Justin Fields and then help him out. And I think you saw that in both free agency and in the draft. And it helps, I guess, for them that they're starting from such a low point that that there's going to be progress. You'd think. There is a Matt Eberflus question that conversation that has to be had here, and I think that's why I have them maybe a little higher. I have the Bears at a 7 for that reason.
Ooh.
A lot of Eberflus, 7.5. I have them actually.
I got them at 6.5. I got the Packers at 7, and I have the Lions, the highest in that division, at 7.5. Because the reason I think they're feeling urgent is like now's the time, like. They've never gone into a season with this much hype. They are set up well for a while, but a division title would mean so much to that city and to that organization, and it's all set up for them. They are literally the favorites. They have great line play. It's kind of exactly what they've been building toward is this moment, and so I feel like that is urgent. If they had like a 8-9 season and came in second in that division, weirdly it'd be a pretty big letdown.
The Lions.
Yeah,
I think I agree with you. I'm with you on that. I don't know. The Packers surprised me. You have them a little higher than I do. I have them at a 5, the same as the Vikings, where it's, there's like success is kind of hard to even calibrate what the Packers, you want to obviously see the quarterback show tangible signs of growth, but I don't think the power structure is in doubt there.
That's true.
And I think Love is going to get at least 1 year here.
Well, there's the whole prove Aaron Rodgers wrong thing that makes it feel a little more urgent. The fan base there makes it feel a little more urgent. I have the Vikings 31st on my list out of 32 teams. 2.5 I'm giving them. You cut Dalvin Cook. You trade Zadarius Smith. You're trying to trade Danielle Hunter. You're coming off total found money with a 13-win season, and then your coach and your GM is in total job security mode, which is great. I think they should be. They did a great job. They're in year 2. I had them all the way at the bottom, only above the 32nd team, which I assume we have the same team.
I'm going to drop the Vikings to a 3.
Wow.
It's such a great case. Yeah, the Cardinals I had to stick at a 0.0. And that's not even, kind of is a takedown, but it's also like, just it is what it is. Like there's no urgency to win this year, and they are playing for next year. They're the textbook definition of a team that isn't playing or playing with any sense of urgency for the upcoming season. I don't even think it's a hit piece.
No, Colt McCoy is scheduled to be their starter. Their fan base will be happy if they win 4 or 5 games or cause violence.
They just got bored of DeAndre Hopkins, and they're just like, get him out of here.
No
urgency.
I wonder I'm sure the fan bases listening would disagree, but the only other teams that we haven't mentioned that I have below 5, I said my whole AFC South, other than actually my entire AFC South is, but I have the Giants pretty low because I think they're kind of similar to the Vikings, that they're just found money. And if they took a step back, everyone kind of gets it as long as they show some growth and talent. I have the Panthers low. Number 1 overall quarterback, just how he looks is the most important thing, but they don't need to win this year. And then the Rams, I guess, have to be low. Even though they have Cooper Kupp and Donald, how can they feel what they're doing is urgent? Next year is urgent for them.
Yeah, I have them at a 7, but I couldn't really figure out what they're doing. But I'm not alone. Everyone's trying to kind of figure out the Rams' plan of attack this year.
It's like a gap year. You take a year off of college and you just go travel the world, and then you come back and try to hit it hard. I mean, I didn't do that, but that's something.
Yeah, it seems like it would have been a cool
that's
thing.
The gap Rams year.
We should do gap years in this country.
Just as a profession, as once you.
Isn't that the post university?
I don't even.
European thing to do. You graduate and then you just take a year off and you help us out, overseas listeners, because I think that's what it is, and then you get to be that. You get to backpack and go stay at hostels and things of that nature, and then you start your career.
Hey, with this economy, you might not have a choice. Hey.
Oh, this guy gets it. All right, let's good conversation. Anything else you want to hit there? And check out NFL.com next week. I think I'll have something up on this.
Looking forward to it.
Did we miss anything? I feel like we didn't. I feel like we hit everything we needed to there.
Hit almost every team. I've got the Broncos and the Steelers square in the middle of my urgency rankings. They're just middle tier.
Ravens? Where you got the Ravens?
They're high, upper middle class. Upper middle.
Samesies. Let's bring in Frags. Frags behind the glass.
Wow, she's
from the newsroom. She's going to come sit in because, let's get her seated here. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexandra Fragola. Wow, the legend herself. Yes. Get situated, Frags.
Now
take your time.
Frags has joined the show before, but only behind the glass. So this is a first. But very often, the chanteuse on our drops.
Well said. You are the chanteuse of Around the NFL. Alex, how are you?
I'm great. I was not told that this was on camera. Thanks, guys. So that's cute.
At a certain
that's
point.
That's on Dan.
I mean, you could say it's on Dan, Frags, but at a certain point, we do the show in a studio with lighting and cameras on us.
Yeah, but every other time I've just stood behind the glass.
I know, and I thought this would be a good way to make things a little bit more direct. But can I apologize? Do you want to go behind the glass?
I accept your apology.
Okay.
In the past, it has been behind the glass, but don't worry. In no way are our listeners weirdos, and the ones that only listen to audio usually, there's no way they're going to go to the YouTube just to see what's going on with Frags.
Okay.
Way to make her comfortable, Greg. All right, Frags. Now.
This is a good color.
That was more a shot at our listeners.
Yeah.
Listeners, be normal people.
Yeah, be normal.
Okay. Frags, you are, and we've worked together forever, right? I mean, since
a very long time.
2010.
That's showing my age, but yes.
Samesies.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
12 for me, yeah.
And the one thing you got to know about Frags is she is a traveler, a world traveler, in fact.
Yes.
And
that's true.
I thought with summer right around the corner, our listeners, who are all normal and not at all creepy, are going to really benefit from Frags giving some tips for summer travel before we say goodbye today and head into the weekend.
Okay.
So I'm going to tee you up.
Oh, okay. You have ideas.
Yes.
Great.
No, I'm just going to say relax, everybody. Smile and watch your worries wash away on the white sand beaches of Fragola town. Bellissima. How do you say it? Bellissima.
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 We'll work on your Italian.
Travel tips with Fragola.
Oh, okay.
All right. Do you want to go down a list? How many do you have?
I mean, you didn't really give me a lot of info, just 5 travel tips.
Yeah. How about
So,
number 1?
Here's some stuff. Travel like credit card debt doesn't exist because it doesn't.
Okay, go on.
Like,
Flesh that out.
Go to Venice, Italy, because it's not going to be there forever. Just go. You'll have credit card debt. It won't matter.
So just open up that extra card, max it out if you have to.
Make sure it has points and lounge access.
Feels irresponsible, but you're a travel advisor, not a financial advisor.
Yeah.
That's an important distinction.
No one would ever bring me on their podcast to discuss finances. And if they would.
I like that, though. You're right. These places, there's only so much in your life that you can squeeze them all in. You better get working at it.
Exactly.
All right. So just to put a bow on that one.
Spend money.
Have fun now. Worry about the financial consequences later. Tip number 2 from Fragola.
Life advice.
Yeah, I like that. Bellissima.
Okay, let me give you something.
Ciao.
Ciao. Oh, we'll give you something Italian.
Okay.
I just actually. Oh, okay.
Gabagola.
Side note.
Yeah.
I'm going to Italy in about 2.5 weeks, and you know who I'm going to hang out with there?
Who?
David Ely.
Whoa.
Oh, Ely himself in Italy?
David Ely and his friends.
Ely, another newsroom staple for years.
I know he's big with the listeners here.
Huge fan.
Wow.
Big Panthers fan.
So I was just telling him that in Italy, you are not to order a cappuccino afternoon.
After the noon hour. Okay.
That's tip number 2.
That is a
Very
breakfast
specific.
drink. You will be embarrassed at the Italian bar if you ask for anything other than an espresso.
This is so important because define embarrassed. Will you just get a look like, oh, the American?
You might get an absolutely not. It depends how easily.
Oh, they might say no?
They could.
Oh, jeez. See, Greg, I want to start spreading my wings and seeing other
tricky
things.
people. It depends what part.
You Italians.
How many times have you been to Italy?
Shifty.
I've probably been to Italy like 6 or 7.
Dang, you really do travel a lot. Wait, so you were in Japan this offseason?
Yes,
in
which
Korea.
Funnily enough, I was just saying you never sent me travel tips for.
Ooh.
Yeah, this guy was supposed to hook me up with Tokyo travel tips, and
he promised it on top.
and
of it.
he did not.
Well, I don't know if I promised it, but that would, I guess, be another tip: is ask someone who travels there a lot for tips ahead of time.
Just not Greg.
Yes, just not Greg. Do not ask Greg for travel tips.
All right, travel tip number. Oh, to put a bow on that one, do not order a cappuccino after 12 o'clock noon. You may get looks. You might even get denied. A real social no-no. Number 3.
Number 3. Okay, a really practical one.
Yes.
Fantastic one. City Mapper.
City Mapper?
City Mapper. It's a fantastic app. It has different cities in it. It works all over the world. It depends on what city you're in. But, like Japan, they had it for Kyoto and Tokyo. They had it for Seoul. They have it all over London. They have it here. And
you were in London this offseason, too.
I was in London this offseason.
Where else? This is outrageous.
That's all I've been to.
Well, that's a lot.
That's it?
3 months.
Yeah. And then you just put in where you're going, where you are, where you're trying to get to, and it gives you like how much a taxi would cost, how much an Uber would cost. It gives you all the transportation options, how long it'll take, how long it could take to walk or bike.
Better than Waze, you're saying?
Oh my God, infinitely better because it gives you all the public transportation. It'll give you your tube stop.
City Mapper.
So
Very
that's an
good.
actually practical tip.
That's extremely practical.
You use that in Tokyo because I didn't tell you how.
Because you didn't tell me anything. So
that's a rough.
You managed though. How was it?
I had been to Tokyo before.
How was it?
It was fantastic. I got a tattoo. Well, I got a tattoo in Kyoto, but
very nice.
It's a strawberry.
Very nice. Well done. And on kind of a little bonus, how do you handle Tokyo, for instance, the language divide?
So many people speak English there.
Okay.
And I will say, they see me walking down the street and no one expects me to speak Japanese. So it's quite.
You know Japanese?
No, they don't expect me to. So I'm
good,
fine. No one's going to speak like rapid fire Japanese to me, whereas in Europe, I feel like frequently people will speak.
I hope everyone's listening. These are really good tips, okay? And that one is, it's okay. You could be a little nervous if you don't know the language, but be aware a lot of people in other parts of the world do speak multiple languages. It's a little
I would
bit
say,
of a
though,
flaw
like,
of our country.
It depends. Like, you don't want to get too far. You don't want to get outside of Tokyo or
Yes.
start going to some hot
Hokkaido, for instance. Don't want to go there.
Hokkaido. I'm just saying, like, you don't want to be going to some hot spring hotel. Or I found myself in certain situations where my lack of English definitely hurts me.
I would also say.
How you doing on your Japanese, Greggy?
It's non-existent.
I was gonna say. Also, if you speak a little bit of a language, be prepared that people are gonna speak to you like you're fluent, rapid fire. The moment
Got it. So
you
kind
get
of little
into it,
backfire situation.
It could backfire on you a little bit.
All right, number 4.
Okay, this is where I stopped preparing.
Okay.
Book-
That's how we handle most shows too.
Book tickets to like famous things way ahead of time so that you don't have to wait. Like if you wait in line to buy tickets for the Louvre, it'll take you an extra 2 hours and it's miserable and you don't want to do that, especially if it's summer. So don't do that. Also, crazy scorching hot take. I think the Louvre is overrated.
Whoa.
Musée d'Orsay
d'Orsay
is beautiful. I hate Impressionist art. Another hot take, but a beautiful museum. And less crowded.
I'm gonna go with another
avoid Louvre at all
another
costs.
hot take.
Got it.
In terms of travel.
Do tell.
With maybe rare exceptions, don't wait for anything. Life's too short to wait in line
That's kinda where I'm
for
at.
just about anything.
This is very
It's a huge city. You're not going to be able to see everything that they have, but there will be more to see.
Right.
Don't bother.
If you invite
there's a 2-hour wait.
In a similar but different context, if you invite me anywhere and it's like, oh, you got to wait on a line to get it, it's like, I'm not going. And, kind of F you for inviting me to a place where I have to wait on a line. Finally, number 5. Remember, number 4, do not go to the Louvre under any circumstances. Number 5, the final tip.
Oh.
Travel tip from Frags.
Don't ask for ice in foreign countries.
I hate
Not because ice is bad
Yeah.
or anything like that, but because it is a very uniquely American ask. Like, ice for your water?
Plus,
They're gonna
there's
be like, why
a
do you
shortage.
Why do you want ice for your water? This is a ridiculous American request.
I have, because, Daddy likes to have a Tito's.
Okay, that's different. That's on.
But here's the thing. When I go to London for our trips and I order one at the bar, there's like 2 half melted ice cubes floating on top of my Tito's. And I make my Tito's, and the tips I always give, here's a little tip. Here's a little behind the bar tip from old Zeuser. This is how you make the drink. You fill it up with ice. Then you do a 5-second pour that will take your ice down about halfway, but keep it icy. And then put your topper on, and then you have a delicious, fizzy, icy, delicious cocktail.
Well, all the
You're not gonna get
bartenders
that.
of London will be listening to this. But
I could use a drink, I gotta say.
bonus tip: don't drink tequila in London. Drink what the locals drink. Just
Okay.
drink sake in Japan. Drink soju in Korea. Drink wine
Drink
in
warm
Italy,
beer.
Drink warm beer in London. Although they will tell you not all their beer is warm.
There, it is not. Many types of beer.
That's the best piece of advice. Just eat what's what they
Yes.
specialize.
Do what they, okay.
Eat and
Get
drink.
it. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexandra Fragola.
Can I go?
Yes.
I apologize if we didn't warn you enough, and if I made it uncomfortable in any way.
It's this is the only thing I actually know about. So
Well, that's why we had you on.
unless you guys want to talk about clothes, I got that covered too.
That will be your next appearance on the show. Frags, thank you very much. We will be back on, I don't know, Monday?
There she goes.
Sounds about right.
We're back on Monday.
Yeah. You could go, Frags. Great seeing you. With another episode, we'll have the gang back together as we churn through the off season. Anything else, Greg, before we say goodbye?
No, I think that's it. I mean, my own travel tip. Here's an underrated way to do it. Just don't have many plans at all. Just go. Just be in that city and sort of try to have it. You don't have to see everything. I mean,
Right.
people are wired differently. But if you just sort of have a day where you're bouncing around and it's not all planned out, I feel like it works out better that way, less stressful.
All right. You could add that as well to the notes. Don't overplan. Don't spend your whole time on a tour bus and stuff like that. I like that. All right. Good stuff. Enjoy your weekend. Heed the call.